Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, Assalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah, Sallallahu alayhi wasallam, wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajmain. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala nabiyyana Muhammad, Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Assalamu alaikum. I'd like to welcome all of you in this presentation on effective technical report writing. Effective technical report writing. So the main learning outcome for this session would be that after the completion of this session, the students should be able to write technical reports mainly based on rubrics. That's the learning outcome. Okay, before we go with the different things which I want to present, I want to know your expectations from this session. So I would request you to give me your valuable feedback in Slido by entering the code 444. And I want to know what you want to learn from this session. Yeah, please feel free to give me your feedback. Yeah, what you want to learn from this session, from today's session. Okay, so proper sequence of content. Yeah, you'll find it from the template, the official template. Correct sequence of report. Again, you'll get it from the template, which is available in your Google Classroom, which has been launched for this for your batch. Yeah, for current 4.2. Proper way of report writing. Yes, this is what will be addressed. I will try to address that as much as possible today, inshallah. Content, impact, social segments, yeah, impact. Writing report professionally. Yes, this is, inshallah, I'll try to address that based on certain credible or authoritative sources, inshallah. I'll try to do that, inshallah. How to represent the report with sufficient details. Yes, inshallah. I'll try to address that as well, inshallah, bidnillahi ta'ala. Okay, let's move on. So broadly speaking, okay, technical reporting, that's a broad area. There can be different types of technical reports, like project report, feasibility study report, pre-feasibility report, thesis, dissertation, so on. Usually the doctoral works, doctoral final report or thesis is known as dissertation, usually, yeah. And thesis can be for undergrad or masters. Even sometimes people might say PhD thesis. Okay, in our official thesis template, this is what you have, and that's the sequence. Of course, in between you have table of content, list of figures, list of tables, all those things, but this is the general sequence. And in today's presentation, I'll try to address them. Abstract, yeah, I mean, that's the first important thing which you'll have to write. Abstract is super duper important, because that will give the examiner or the reader the first impression about your work. So I would request all of you to spend significant amount of time on writing abstract. It should be razor sharp. Try to avoid the errors and mistakes and all those things from the abstract. Then followed by, after abstract, you should have the introduction. Inshallah, we'll talk about that. What are the components? Then literature review, followed by methodology, followed by results and discussion, followed by conclusion and recommendations, then finally references. And you can have appendices. If you have some additional information, that should be included in different appendices. Yeah. Okay. So this is the sequence, what you should have in your report. By the way, also, I would encourage all of you to explore LaTeX, which can generate very high quality thesis report. And in the past, we had 2 events, hands-on workshop, thesis journey using LaTeX. This was conducted by me and one of your seniors, Tanveer. Mainly Tanvir. I mean, that even the title was given by him, Thesis Journey Using LaTeX. So it's quite useful. You will see one of your seniors, one of my supervisees, he showed different aspects of LaTeX, and he used LaTeX for his thesis report. So I think you will benefit from this. And recently, very recently, I conducted another a presentation on LaTeX for academic communications. It's available on YouTube, so you can explore that as well for different. I mean, even if you don't want to use LaTeX, even then I would request you to explore this video, because you will come to know about different types of plots or figures which you can have in your thesis report. So even if you don't want to use LaTeX, still you can watch that to get ideas about different types of written and graphical communications. And this is, I would say, kind of a must. I mean, you should check your report with the help of some sort of apps to get rid of spelling and grammatical mistakes. And one of the leading tools which is available nowadays is Grammarly. I use that every now and then. Yeah, Grammarly. So please use Grammarly. Use Grammarly to correct all your grammatical mistakes. This is quite useful. Apart from that, we have some other nice reports or handbooks, like there is something called the Mayfield Handbook of Technical and Scientific Writing. It's available from MIT's website. Yeah, MIT's website. So this is quite authoritative. You can explore that. And also you have some other useful, this is open source book, technical writing, and also Purdue. Purdue is a prestigious university in the US. They have their Purdue Online Writing Lab, yeah, on OWL. This is quite useful. You'll find lots of things, lots of tips related to writing. Okay, now we try to tackle different elements in your thesis report. We start with abstract. We start with the abstract. So as I said earlier, it should be razor sharp. Try to, eliminate all the mistakes from your abstract. Yeah. So rewrite it as many times as possible. Use Grammarly, check the grammatical mistakes, get rid of the spelling mistakes. So it should be razor sharp. So it can be, this is my suggestion. Of course, you will talk to your respective supervisors and get their opinion. And I'm giving you my perspective, but you should also take your supervisor's perspective about these elements. So a paragraph with approximately 300 words should be concise. It should not be verbose. I mean, it should not write extra things. I mean, it should be concise. Yeah. Every sentence is important. There should not be any loose sentence. And it's extremely important, as I said. This will give the initial impression. The reader will get initial impression about your work. So it's extremely important. So this is my suggestion. It should have 5 elements. In your abstract, you should have 5 elements. So initially, you should have a background or problem statement. So you write few sentences to illustrate the background or context of the present research or your thesis work. Then it should be followed by objective, not detailed objectives. Detailed objectives will go in your introduction, that part. Here, a general, more broad objective. As it's written here, write the prime motives in the present research briefly. Yeah, your prime motives in the present research briefly. Yeah, so it's a broad objective, not specific detailed objective. Followed by methodology of the project. Again, general, broadly written. You don't give too much detail, just the main things in your methodology, how you tackle the present research. Then only list some of the major findings. So that's your contribution. Yeah, that's your fruits, the things which are coming from your work. Yeah. So this is extremely important in your abstract. So what you have done. Okay, these are basically things from others, you can say, or I mean, that's not necessarily what you want to do. I mean, what are the fruits coming from your work that you should list concisely. And finally, you can just write one concluding sentence, which will highlight what is the value of your present research. So these are some of the things which you should include in your abstract. Any question or comment regarding these points? Anything? Okay, we'll have a hands-on session. I mean, we'll try to explore some exemplars, and I would request in that hands-on session, you will critique some of the work based on this benchmark. Yeah. Okay. Now, introduction. In introduction, we suggest, and you can see that in your official rubrics as well. You should have a background, problem statement, objectives, scopes of the thesis. At least we want at least these 4 elements in your introduction, chapter 1. And you can have some additional things. For example, I highly recommend my students to include the working principle of the technology which they are dealing in their project work. So that is highly recommended. Yeah, work so that the reader has a kind of introduction about your research. Background. When it's a background, 2 to 3 paragraphs. It should not be very, I mean, quite lengthy. Yeah, should not be lengthy. I mean, page after page, you're just writing the background. It should not be too long. Should not be too long. So 2 to 3 paragraphs max. And also you should do in these backgrounds, you should include some facts, figures. But often what we see that the students, they tend to forget the citations or references associated with those facts or figures. So please don't forget to include the citations. Yeah, you should cite them properly. From where you are getting this information, that should be clear to the reader. In the problem statement, according to the Mayfield Handbook, which is available in the MIT's website, there should be 3 elements of a problem statement. Yeah. One is the problem itself. So in the problem statement, first you write the problem itself. So stated clearly and with enough contextual details to establish why it is important. If you go to the Mayfield Handbook, it's freely available, then you'll see there are examples, which will clarify this. Well, what does it mean, the problem itself? So you'll see some examples. So the problem itself, followed by the method of solving the problem, according to them. Yeah, second element should be the method of solving the problem, often stated as a claim or a working thesis. And finally, the purpose, statement of objective and scope of the document the writer is preparing. Again, I would request all of you to visit Mayfield Handbook and see some examples and grasp the meaning of these 3 elements. Regarding objectives, and objectives are very important. Later on, your work, your future work will be based on these objectives. You'll be guided by these objectives. Throughout this thesis work, it should be back of your minds that these are my objectives. So I should be doing this work or that work to fulfill these objectives. So try to write 3 to 5 clear objectives. It should not be too many. So if you write too many objectives and then you might be under pressure to fulfill so many objectives, you'll burden yourself. So don't overburden yourself. Write 3 to 5 concise, clear objectives, clearly written, not ambiguous. Should not be ambiguous. That's why it should be smart. SMART, S-M-A-R-T. Learn this acronym. So SMART objectives, SMART. How many of you are familiar with SMART objectives? How many of you? Anybody? I mean, have you ever heard something like SMART objectives? Anybody? Okay. Now, let us go through this. Okay, Mushfiq. Yes, Mushfiq. You know about SMART objectives. Very good. Okay, let us talk about this. Specific. S stands for specific. It should be specific, clear cut. There should not be any ambiguity. So it should be specific. And inshallah, in the exemplar, we'll go through this and you will critique as few works and see whether that is specific or not. Specific and measurable. M stands for measurable. Measurable in terms of activity. So you have written an objective. Later on, you will be doing different work. That objective should be measurable with the help of your work. It should not be just a loose statement and it cannot be measured. So there should be room for measurement. So you have written in your objective, okay, to design. Yeah, then you'll have to do certain design. So you'll be fulfilling the objective. So it should be measurable. Then attainable. I mean, you should be realistic. I mean, that is another thing. I mean, it should not be something which you won't be able to achieve during this 2-semester long thesis work. Should be attainable. Yeah, so be very careful. Don't overburden yourself with very lofty thing which you won't be able to attain. Then R stands for relevant to the focus of the project. Relevant. It should be relevant. It's the focus of the project, and it should be the time frame for completion is realistic. Yeah. So your objectives in the case of your thesis work, you should be able to complete or achieve these objectives within 2 semesters. Yeah. So your objectives should be SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. Okay. Now, in the scopes is easy. I mean, in the scopes, in that section, you should highlight the main contents in different chapters. Inshallah, in the exemplars, I'll come to this. I'll show you what does it mean, scopes. Then literature review. The next chapter, chapter 2. Chapter 2 is literature review. And in the past, we had a session. I mean, your one batch, it was conducted in January 2021. There was a session. So I conducted that session on effective literature review for the final year projects. Please watch that. How many of you watched that video? Anybody? Anybody watched that video? Yeah, Mushfiq, again, Mushfiq, nobody else. So I would encourage you to watch that video. Yeah, Durjoy also watched that. So I think Shoaib watched that as well. So I think you'll benefit. Please feel free to watch that video where I discuss different aspects of literature review. So in the literature review should be arranged under different sections and subsections with appropriate headings, and should be associated with necessary citations whenever possible. Again, citations you should have ample citations, and should not contain copyright protected graphics or illustrations, figures, and try to use OER, open educational resources, as much as possible with proper attributions. And in this regard, I conducted another presentation session on OER. They're quite useful, you know. The OER, when you are using OER, you don't have to take permission from anybody. You can just use them with citation, with attributions, with proper attributions. You can just use OER, and there are plenty of OER which are available in different topics. So please feel free to use OER in your reports. Now, this is often neglected, that students in the literature review, they are just compiling information, whole lot of information from different sources, but they are not basically, they become kind of literature search, not review. You should review them and you should try to find research gap. In the past, people have done so many things. So in your particular topic, you try to see what people have not done, what is missing, what is lacking. That should be highlighted. And you try to plug in that gap. You try to plug in that gap. So this is extremely important, research gap. And in the rubrics, we'll be watching this. So if you want to get excellent grade, so you should include research gap in your literature review section. And you should have valid discussions. You should have, comprehensive discussions with, and often what we see that students are including lots of figures, plots, tables, which are not referred. This is a big problem which we see every now and then with the student, the reports, thesis reports, that the students are not referring the figures or tables. You must refer the figures and tables. Yeah. So first you refer to the figures or tables or plots, then they should appear. They should not appear in the document before you refer them. This is something, again, the students often, they make this mistake. Yeah. Here, your figure or table should not appear before you refer them in the main text. And not only referring, you should also, you should also have at least 2-3 sentences of discussion, valid discussions about those figures or tables or plots. So this is something, see, I'm highlighting that in one slide that you should be doing. They should be referred in the main texts appropriately. And it's often neglected, this thing. Next, methodology. Again, there was a presentation on the methodology for the final year projects. I would request all of you to watch that. I hope you'll benefit from this video. And in the case of methodology, you should include a flow chart to illustrate the steps or main activities, what you are doing in your thesis. I'll show you example, inshallah. And also you discuss different elements of the flow chart. What are the steps? It can be experimentation, simulation work, instrumentation, and design analysis, limitation constraints, etc. That should be clearly stated. And you should report the design analysis in a comprehensive manner. And then it's a very important section, this results and discussion. It's a very important section. And often it's not written properly. Student usually what they do in the result, many times we have seen, they just dump different figures and tables, and those tables or figures, they are not referred properly, and they're just thinking that the reader or the examiner will understand. They will be able to interpret them. So I don't have to write anything in the main text. No, you should discuss all, again, I'm reiterating, you should be discussing all the figures and tables appropriately. Yeah, so it should be comprehensive with reasonable discussions. All the figures, tables should be referred and discuss all the figures or tables, and include a separate section to list social implications, because we want our students to graduate with certain attributes. This will fulfill that. So you should assess the social implications, and preferably with the help of SDGs. Sustainable Development Goals. With the help of SDGs, you analyze the social implication of your project or your research, and include a separate section to list the sustainability and environment related aspects. It's kind of must. Yeah, you must do this if you want to get good marks. And this is again one thing I would like to emphasize, the importance of validation. So if you have computational or simulation works, you should validate appropriately. So what does it mean? And you should compare your results or the data which you are getting from your computational model or simulation with the published experimental results from the literature. So this is very important, very important. Without validation, we are reluctant to accept any computational work. So it should be clear to all of you. And in your results and discussions section, there should be ample diagrams, plots or charts or equations. So in order to help you with this, I had a presentation for academic communication using LaTeX. So you can watch those particular contents. Yeah, you'll see there are so many types of diagrams which you can use in your report. There are different types of charts. So use them judiciously. Use them judiciously. So you need to take proper decision regarding which type of diagrams you should be using, which type of plots you should be using. Yeah. And for equations, we have certain template which you should follow. If you're using LaTeX, these things become really very easy, and you can get very good quality diagrams, charts, or equations. So again, I would encourage you to use LaTeX for preparing your thesis report. Then conclusion and recommendations. So include clear and concise quantitative statements of the important findings in relation to the objectives. In relation to the objectives outlined in chapter 1 without any noticeable error, mistake, or inconsistency. So this is very important. You are writing objectives in your introductory sections, chapter 1. So in your concluding remarks, you should relate to those objectives. You should mention how you have fulfilled those objectives in this research work. That's why I mentioned that it should not be too lofty, which you cannot attain. At the end, you'll have to explain to the reader, okay, these were the objectives and we have attained this in this way. So again, you will have to focus on objectives when you are writing your conclusion. Don't forget that. And also suggest future works based on limitations of the project. And in the reference section, now we are using IEEE format, and you can consult the IEEE reference guide, which is available here. You can see the link. You can consult that when you are preparing your references. And we have official template which is available in the course site. Yeah, it's available. So you should consult that. And I can just show you once again. This is the template which has been shared with you in Google Classroom. So it's quite self-explanatory what you should have in your report: abstract, then table of contents. Yeah, on the table of contents you should have these elements. Yeah. Also, you should have list of tables, figures, list of abbreviations, nomenclature, all these. And then for different chapters, there are some few sentences that they are to guide you with those things. Yeah, for methodology, results and discussion. In the results and discussion, yeah, you have different things which you should include. Those are listed here. So please stick to this template. Yeah, stick to this template. Okay, now I have also prepared a template in Overleaf. So please go through. You can access that here. You can have a look. It should help you, and also there is a related content regarding thesis and dissertation. You can visit that as well. Now, what we'll do, let us try to explore a few exemplars, and I want to get your feedback regarding those exemplars. based on what you heard today. Yeah, let us try to explore these exemplars. I'd like to get your feedback. Okay, so Alhamdulillah, we had a nice hands-on session where we tried to critique two reports, project reports. Now let's summarize what I tried to present. I tried to discuss or highlight mainly 7 elements in the official thesis template, which are abstract, introduction, literature review, methodology, results and discussion, conclusion and recommendations, and references. These are the 7 elements. Once again, you should write your abstract quite nicely, and people often they will take it very seriously. Yeah, very seriously. So try to write your abstract nicely. And then introduction, you have in our template, we have 4 sections: background, problem statement, objectives, and scopes of the chapters. You include them, and additionally, it's a good idea to write and include a section highlighting the working principle of the technology which you are dealing. In the literature review, you categorize the information under different headings and use open educational resources as much as possible, and you try to refer to the figures and tables with proper citations. An important thing is you try to find the research gaps. You try to find the research gaps which you have in your literature review. It should not be just literature search. There should be review. In the methodology, in the introductory section, you give a flow chart and you highlight different activities or steps you took in your thesis work, and you expand or discuss those steps or elements. In the results and discussion should be written nicely. You'll include different types of figures, plots, or tables, but you should refer them properly in your table, in your main texts, and there should be adequate discussions. It should not be just dumping off plenty of figures and tables. They should be associated with proper discussions. And also in the conclusion and recommendation section, as I mentioned, in the concluding remarks, try to give a statement related to the objectives quantitatively. This is very important, often neglected. And in the references, yeah, you should cite throughout your report properly. And our official template is IEEE. So with this, I would like to end today's presentation.